You think you've heard every story about Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampkin? Think again, because Jaguar Wright just dropped a bomb that could change how we've all been looking at their so-called love story. According to Jaguar, this wasn't love. It was a strategy. She's calling out the entire setup, saying that what fans thought was romance might have been one of the biggest illusions in hip-hop reality TV history. She claims Chrissy was placed in Jim's life for a reason, and that reason wasn't love or loyalty. It was controlled. Now, this is coming from Jaguar, right? The woman who's been exposing industry lies for years. She says she's seen this pattern before. Powerful figures manipulating relationships to keep artists distracted, dependent, and silent. And when it comes to Jim and Chrissy, Jaguar says the system was pulling every string behind the scenes. This isn't just gossip anymore. It's a chilling look into how deep the entertainment machine can go. Was their entire relationship just another production? Was Jim Jones chosen to play a role in a much darker agenda? Let's break it all down piece by piece, because once you hear Jaguar's claims, we'll never look at Jim and Chrissy the same way again. When Jaguar Wright starts talking, the entire industry gets nervous because she doesn't just speak, she exposes. And this time, her target isn't some distant record label or forgotten artist. It's Jim Jones and Chrissy Lampkin, one of hip-hop's most talked about couples. Jaguar didn't just throw random shade. She dropped claims that hit straight at the foundation of their relationship. According to her, the love story we all saw play out on Love and Hip Hop wasn't organic. It was orchestrated, a calculated storyline, designed to keep Jim Jones exactly where the system wanted him, distracted, emotional, and off balance. She said, and I quote, "Y'all keep thinking that show was about love. Nah, it was about leverage." Jaguar claims the cameras were just a cover-up. Behind the scenes, there were meetings, deals, and powerful people deciding how far Jim and Chrissy's relationship would go. Everything from the public proposals to the emotional breakdowns. All of it served a purpose. But what purpose? Jaguar says the entertainment industry has always used relationships to control narratives. When an artist becomes too independent, the system ties them down with distractions. Love, scandal, or loyalty traps. And in Jim's case, she says Chrissy's presence wasn't just coincidence, it was strategy. Jaguar's words hit hard because she's not some random commentator. She's been inside that world. She's seen artists destroyed, manipulated, and silenced, all in the name of love and fame. So, when she says Chrissy's role was more than emotional, people listened. She described Chrissy as the perfect distraction, someone the audience could root for, a strong, loyal woman fighting for her man. But behind that image, Jaguar claims there were silent hands writing the script. Hands that belonged to people who benefited from Jim staying in the spotlight just enough to keep him visible, but not powerful enough to stand alone. And that's where things get deep, because when you trace the timeline, things start to look strange. Every time Jim Jones tried to elevate musically to step out of the shadow of Dipset and stand on his own, some new drama would explode. Either a public argument with Chrissy, a breakup rumor, or a new Love and Hip Hop episode focused on chaos. Coincidence? Jaguar doesn't think so. She believes those moments were engineered. She says the best way to control a man is through what he loves. And in this case, they made sure what he loved was always tied to the show. According to her, Jim wasn't just in love with Chrissy. He was strapped by the image of that love. And that's what she calls the system. It's not just labels and executives. It's a web of producers, networks, and PR machines working together to shape a narrative. They decide who looks like a hero, who looks broken, okay? And who never gets to rise beyond their storyline. Now fans are starting to piece it together. They're looking back at old interviews, old clips, moments where Jim looked frustrated, tired, or lost in his own fame. Moments where Chrissy's emotions became the center of the story, while Jim's career quietly faded into the background. Jaguar says that was by design because the more emotional chaos surrounded him, the less focus there was on his music, his independence, or his voice. She even claimed that at one point certain producers told Jim directly, "People don't care about your music anymore. They care about your relationship." Think about that. An artist who built his name on street credibility and hard work, suddenly being boxed into reality TV drama and all of it broadcasted as love. Jaguar says, that's how the system wins. They turned real lives into entertainment and then used those emotions as chains. And here's the part that shocked fans. Jaguar didn't blame Chrissy completely. She said Chrissy might have been a pawn to someone who believed she was fighting for love but didn't realize she was part of a bigger plan. She said, "They don't tell you you're being used. They just make you feel like you're finally getting what you deserve." So both Jim and Chrissy became part of the show, literally and figuratively. Every season pulled them deeper into the machine until their real emotions became the script. Their fights became ratings. Their love became leverage. And while the world laughed, cried, and debated their story, the system sat back, collecting profits, controlling perception, and deciding who would shine next. Jaguar Wright's warning wasn't just about Jim Jones. She was pointing to a pattern, one that has repeated in countless celebrity relationships across the industry. She said, "Every time you see a couple suddenly everywhere on TV, ask yourself who benefits from that exposure." Fans online are now revisiting Jim and Chrissy's timeline from the early proposal to the constant tension. And suddenly, it all feels less like a love story and more like a long-running performance, one that maybe neither of them fully controlled. Jaguar ended her statement with a chilling line. "Love is the easiest way to sell a lie." When Jaguar Wright's words hit the internet, it was like lighting a match in a room full of gasoline. Within hours, social media exploded. Clips from her live stream started circulating on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and X. People couldn't stop replaying that one line. Love was never the goal. Control was. Fans who had followed Jim Jones and Chrissy for more than a decade suddenly found themselves questioning everything. Was their love story ever real? Or were we all just watching a script, one designed to distract from something much bigger? Comments flooded every platform. Jaguar might be crazy, but she's never wrong. This explains why Jim always looked tired on camera. Chrissy was fighting for him, but maybe she didn't even know what she was fighting against. The energy online was wild. Old interviews resurfaced, moments fans had ignored before now seemed suspicious. Like that one clip where Jim avoided talking about marriage and Chrissy looked broken. Back then people called it drama, now they called it manipulation. Jaguar, right? Didn't stop there. She went live again 2 nights later, and this time she brought receipts. She talked about the way production teams in reality TV operate, how storylines are planted, how emotional triggers are created to keep the audience hooked, and how certain people get rewarded for keeping the chaos alive. She said, "They don't film your truth, they film the version of your truth that sells." And suddenly, it made sense to everyone who had ever watched Love and Hip Hop. Every fight, every tear, every makeup moment, all of it started to look like a business move instead of a love journey. And in the center of it, Jim and Chrissy were the faces of something much darker, the illusion of choice. Jaguar compared it to a trap. You think you're showing your life to the world, but really, you're resigning your life away. They own your image, your emotions, your story, even your silence. That's when people started digging deeper. A few independent bloggers began pulling old contracts, production notes, and behind-the-scenes leaks from former crew members of the show. One source claimed, "We were told to push the engagement story because he thought what the audience wanted." Even when Jim said he wasn't ready, producers pushed Chrissy to confront him. It made for better television. And just like that, Jaguar's claims didn't seem so far-fetched anymore. It wasn't just theory. There were breadcrumbs everywhere. Jim Jones himself has always been a proud man, vocal, confident, someone who built his name from the streets of Harlem. So why would a man like that stay silent while the world mocked his personal life? Why would he let his private pain become public content? Jaguar had an answer for that, too, she said. Because once you're in the system, silence is survival. Her message was chilling. She hinted that Jim might have wanted to speak out, but doing so could have risked his entire livelihood. Deals, appearances, and even relationships with people in power. And according to Jaguar, that's exactly how the machine keeps people trapped. Through quiet fear, meanwhile, Chrissy started trending again. Her old interviews resurfaced. Fans noticed how often she talked about feeling unheard or stuck. One moment stood out when she said, "I'm always the one fighting for us." She stood out when she said, "I'm always the one fighting for us." At the time, it seemed romantic. Now, it sounded tragic because if Jaguar was right, Chrissy wasn't fighting Jim. She was fighting the invisible walls around him. She was fighting a system that fed on her pain and turned her tears into views. Even other reality stars started commenting subtly without saying names, but clearly addressing the same kind of manipulation. One Love and Hip Hop alum wrote, "Some of us signed up thinking it was a platform. We didn't realize it was a cage." The conversation started shifting from celebrity gossip to industry awareness. People started asking how many other couples have been used this way. How many artists lost their freedom chasing love and fame at the same time? And yet, amidst all the chaos, Jim and Chrissy stayed silent. No response, no denial, no post. That silence became its own kind of confirmation in the eyes of the audience. Because in this generation, silence speaks louder than words. But Jaguar wasn't done. She promised that what she'd said so far was only the beginning. She teased that there was areas in the show had kept them relevant for so long, even after ratings dropped. She said the network had investments in keeping their drama alive, because their story represented something bigger than just entertainment. And that's where things got dark. Jaguar hinted that certain people in the background, not the artists, not the cast, but those sitting in executive chairs, had a pattern of using couples to test public reactions, to study audience emotion, to measure how far manipulation could go before people stopped believing in the love narrative. She said, "You're not just watching TV, you're watching programming. They're programming you to normalize pain." Those words sent chills through the internet because now this wasn't about Jim Jones and Chrissy anymore. It was about how audiences were being conditioned to accept broken love as entertainment. It was about how pain had become profit. Suddenly, everyone had a theory. Some said the system Jaguar mentioned was the entertainment industry itself, an endless cycle of control and illusion. Others believed she was referring to something even deeper, the kind of unseen power that controls media narratives altogether. Whatever the case, Jaguar Wright had once again succeeded in doing what she does best, forcing people to look twice at the stories they thought they knew. And Aspens kept revisiting old clips and piecing together one thing became clear. Maybe, just maybe, the biggest lie wasn't that Jim and Chrissy's love was fake, but that it was ever truly theirs to begin with. By the time Jaguar Wright went live again, the internet was already on fire. Her earlier comments had sparked chaos, fan theories, think pieces, and endless breakdown videos. But this time, it wasn't just words. She had names, dates, and connections. Her tone was calm, almost too calm. As she said, "When I told y'all Jim Jones was part of the system, I wasn't talking about gossip. I was talking about control and how they use people you trust to keep you quiet." The chat went insane. Thousands joined her live within minutes. Some were waiting for more receipts. Others were just curious. But no one expected what came next. Jaguar pulled out screenshots, conversations, contracts, and alleged messages from people linked to production. She didn't show everything clearly, but she showed enough to make the point. Jim Jones wasn't just a player in the system. He was a piece of it. She claimed that over the years, Jim had been rewarded for staying loyal. Not to Chrissy, but to the networks and circles that kept his image profitable. Every comeback, every drama episode, every staged fight, it wasn't random. It was planned chaos. "They make you think these artists are free," she said. "But freedom don't come with contracts that last decades. That's not freedom. That's ownership." The live went viral instantly. Clips hit YouTube within the hour. And for the first time, even people close to the show started whispering. A few anonymous insiders began posting cryptic tweets. One said, "Some of us tried to walk away, but walking away means losing everything." Another posted, "She's not lying. She just said it out loud." That was enough to send the entire internet spiraling. Suddenly, #JimJonesExposed started trending. Reaction channels were eating it up. Everyone had a theory. One fan pointed out how Jim Jones had slowly drifted from music to reality TV to branding deals. Maybe that's what she meant by being part of the system. A blogger said he stopped being an artisan, became a product. Meanwhile, old clips from interviews resurfaced again, this time focusing on Jim's mood, his tone, his silences. Moments when questions got too deep and he'd laugh it off or change the subject. Back then, it seemed casual. Now, it felt like evasion. But the most chilling part came when Jaguar said something that made everyone freeze. "You think he's controlling the narrative? No. The narrative controls him." That one line echoed across social media because it wasn't just about Jim anymore. It was about every artist trapped in a system that feeds off their public image. As people began connecting dots, and a few more shocking things came out. A former producer allegedly confirmed that storylines were chosen months before filming even began. Couples were encouraged to fight, reconcile, and cry on cue. Every emotion was manufactured. And guess who benefited the most? The network, the sponsors, and the people at the top. Not the artists living through that emotional hell. One insider claimed they use your real pain as their marketing plan. Jaguar's message ideally took a deeper turn. She wasn't just exposing a person anymore, she was exposing a system of emotional slavery. She called it the entertainment plantation. A place where people's trauma is monetized while they're told they're living their dream. Fans were stunned. Some refused to believe it. Others said, "This explains everything. Jaguar's followers began calling her the truth teller, comparing her to whistleblowers who exposed corruption. And even though she was being called crazy, her calm delivery made it even more unsettling because she didn't sound like someone guessing. She sounded like someone remembering still. Through all this, Jim Jones stayed silent. No tweets, no interviews, no denial, just complete calculated silence. That silence turned into fuel for Jaguar's fire. She said, "If I was lying, they'd sue me. But they won't, because the truth is the one thing they can't afford to put on record." Boom. That live alone sent chills down people's spines. By now, it wasn't just fans watching. Even other celebrities were lurking. A few musicians liked cryptic posts, some unfollowed Jim quietly, others began posting "truth will set you free" type captions. Subtle appointed day. In a matter of days, what started as a single live stream had turned into a digital rebellion. People began demanding transparency from reality shows and artists. Commentators said this was the beginning of an awakening, not just for viewers, but for entertainers trapped behind the glamour. And as the dust settled, Jaguar left one last warning before ending her live. "If you think I'm done, you don't know me. I'm not just talking about Jim, I'm talking about all of them. The system don't protect artists. It protects ownership. So when you see your favorite celebrities smiling on screen, remember, some smiles are contracts." Her words hung heavy in the air, a quiet, haunting truth no one could ignore anymore. The live ended, the internet froze. And for the first time, even Jaguar's harshest critics didn't have a comeback, because deep down, everyone knew she might just be telling the truth. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't.